Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content, and if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got kind of a fun video to share with you guys. Today I'm going to be talking about my final 5. Periodically, I like to do videos where I take my collection and I reduce it down to one or just a few knives, based on certain parameters. Like if I only keep this many knives for this reason, right, which would I keep? Or I can only keep one knife for this scenario. I like to do that. My collection changes, as I'm sure so does yours. Certain knives stay, certain knives leave for different reasons, but because it's always changing, it's fun to do different videos like this periodically. Today I'm going to be talking about my final 5. What does that mean? It's actually 5 different knives that I put in different categories. When I look at my collection, it's basically 5 different categories. It's beater knives, EDC budget knives, nicer, higher end EDC production knives or production knives that I carry. It's gentleman's carry. I hate that term, or more of just like a fancy occasion or special occasion sort of carry knife. And then Save Queen. That encompasses my collection, the types of knives that I keep for different reasons. So I'm going to reduce that, right, and only keep one from each of those categories. And don't worry, I will explain those categories a little bit more. By the way, this will be an open tag. So other channels that are watching my channel, if you're interested in doing your own final 5, that's fine. Let me know. Because I will include your video once you've made it in a playlist on my channel, so that other people watching my channel can go check out your channels. There are other channels out there that definitely deserve some more attention, and this is, I think, a good way to kind of highlight some of those. So if you want to do that, let me know, DM me, email me at metalcomplex87@gmail.com, and yeah, we'll get that in the playlist. So, categories. Beater knife, that's definitely a knife that's generally inexpensive. It's something that I don't really care about, but I keep it around so that I can take it out and just beat the crap out of it and do whatever it is that I want to do with it. By the way, I understand some people have collections that entirely consist of beater knives. That's fine. This is about how I kind of look at my collection and which knives I'd keep based on how I feel about these different categories, right? So, one beater knife. One knife that I can just destroy if I need to, and I've got it. Right. Next up, an EDC budget knife. Sometimes, what comes along with a beater knife is that it's big and hulking and kind of cumbersome, right? So I definitely want a nicer EDC budget knife, one that I can carry a little easier for little things. I'm not super overprotective of it, but I can kind of use it and it's just easier to carry. What is a budget knife? When we're talking about these knives, anything under $75 on this channel, I consider a budget knife. So definitely one of those. Moving on, a nicer, higher end production knife that I'm actually going to carry. In this case, it's going to be anything over $100 in my collection, all the way up to, I think the maximum value of any knife out here is about $800 or $900, something like that. This is definitely a knife that I'm going to use. Maybe a knife I might be a little more reserved with than a beater, right? But still definitely something that I'm going to use. Next up, the gentleman's carry, the special occasion carry. I think that kind of, speaks, you kind of understand that, right? It's a knife that I'm going to carry to as an event, right? Maybe a cocktail party or wedding, something that's not nearly as aggressive, something that's more of a talking point if I find a situation where I actually need to use it, something that's a little more dressy, right? I mean, I've found definitely it's important for me to keep knives like that in my collection because I don't want to be carrying the combat Troodon to somebody's wedding. It just doesn't make sense. And finally, Save Queen. I have Save Queens in my collection. What is a Save Queen? A Save Queen is a knife that you cherish and love and you don't really use. That's going to make some people mad. I don't really care. I've had Save Queens in my collection forever. I have project knives that I, just cherish. It has nothing to do with it being expensive because I've got really expensive knives that I use and knives that are also the same value that I don't use just because I want to keep them nice. If you have a channel and you want to do this and you don't have a Save Queen, basically it's just your most cherished knife, or the knife, generally it is probably going to be a little more expensive, but that's basically going to be the final category. All right. I got through that faster than I thought I would. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. And if you'd like to check out my Patreon, there's a link right down below. We're going to knock these out one at a time. First up, just right off the bat, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. It's fine. I have this thing about, being able to grip it with 4 fingers, and there's just nothing. A lot of this stuff, there's going to be like sort of a connection with it. There's some sort of internal connection, and I'm just not feeling it with the mini grip. So that doesn't mean that it's a bad knife. It's just one that I'm going to knock off right away. Next up, this is actually my wife's knife, but periodically I'll use it for little things. The Kershaw Blur, it's assisted. It's a great knife. The assisted thing is I'm not really feeling it, right? I mean, it's aluminum and S30V. There's nothing special enough here where I'm just like, I have to keep this around. I can't live without it. Definitely not. Moving on here, actually, this is one that, and by the way, sentimental value, I'm throwing it out the window because a lot of these knives a few of them were actually given to me as gifts for my wife. Have to throw that out the window because if I didn't throw sentimental value out, then I would just keep all the knives that were given by my wife, and that's not entertaining for anybody. This was the first anniversary gift for my wife. This is the Lion Steel TRE Titanium. For a long time, it was my dedicated sort of, special occasion knife, but it's kind of, it's smaller and it's easy to carry, right? But it is still kind of tactical looking and I like it a lot. I just have found that other knives in my collection, I prefer over that one. I love the Rat 2. I really do. This is an excellent, sort of budget EDC / beater knife. It's just not quite big enough to fit into the category that I would have to put it in. This is excellent. It's one of the very best EDC knives that anybody can start with. So let me emphasize that. I'm not saying it's not good. It's just for me, it's not going to be one of the ones that sticks around. Moving on here. Gosh, this is going to get really, really difficult. I'm going to go ahead and knock out the Lightning. You guys haven't seen this one. I bought another lime green Lightning. Lightning OTF, definitely in terms of ratios between cost and dependability, right? When you're talking about an OTF, this is probably the best bang for your buck on the market. These are like $30. You can get them, I think, exclusively at Grindworks. It's great. I don't necessarily, in this price range, like I'm basically looking at the EDC budget knife territory and beater category. This is good. It fits pretty well into either of those territories, but not enough for me to want to keep it. I like OTFs. I find them incredibly convenient, right? But it's not going to work for what I would need it to be. Moving on here. I really like the Rhea. I've kept this thing around because it's a nice general EDC size knife. It also fits really well into kind of a special occasion carry. Just because it's not nearly as intimidating. It's small. It carries really deep, right? It's something that would be appropriate if somebody needed to open, like in a crowded area where you don't know, like a lot of people are like, why do you care what other people think? Because I want to be generally respectful to people. I don't want to be like, hey, I don't want to do that. That's not the type of person I am, right? So in a situation like that, it's nice to have something like this around. I really like it. I think there are better knives in my collection that are going to stick around for that. Let's go ahead and knock out the PM2. I love the PM2. It's still one of the most, I always say, you set one foot in the knife world and you got about 1,000 people going, PM2, PM2. Like that's just what happens. PM2, right? I like the PM2. I used to like it a lot more. I used to EDC S110V version of this. This guy's size comparison knife, it's something I just use for little things down here off camera. I like it. It's not going to fit perfectly into any of these 5 rolls. As we narrow these down, it's going to get... I'm going to have to condense this visually because it's definitely going to get a little bit more tricky. Moving on here. What's the next thing that I'm going to knock out? Probably the Combat Troodon. I love this thing. It is huge. It is very aggressive. It doesn't really fit into the appropriate EDC role for me, even though I do love to carry it, right? There's a lot of extreme here. This was also a gift from my wife. There's a lot of extreme here, and I love it for those extremes. This is the Hellhound version, the Signature Series. Very expensive. This is $600, something like that. I love it. It's definitely not a beater. It's definitely not a budget knife. And it just doesn't quite fit. It's not a safe queen either. And it just doesn't, it's certainly not a special occasion knife. And it just doesn't quite fit into the one role that would make the most sense is just the nicer EDC knife, right? Or the higher end EDC knife. And it's just not quite there. I do enjoy carrying it. It's just not going to be one of the ones that I keep forever. Moving on here. Let's go ahead and knock out the QSP, Penguin. I love this thing. Absolutely. I think it's one of the very best budget knives of all time. You can get these for $30, micarta and D2. This is excellent. It really is. Really, the thing that's keeping this from being like my final nice EDC budget knife, it just comes down to some visual preference things, right? And some, I don't know. Functionally, this thing is fine. The thumb studs work perfectly, right? There's just, I think that there's something that I would prefer just a little bit more, but rest assured, this is excellent. If you've chosen this for whatever role, be proud because it's a good knife. I think for the same reason, we're going to go ahead and knock out the CJRB Feldspar. It is also something that I consider, if you've watched some of my other videos, this is also something that I consider to be one of the very best, the sentence structure there was bad. I consider the CJRB Feldspar to be one of the very best EDC budget knives of all time, alongside QSP Penguin. But would I choose it as my last one? No. I wouldn't. Again, there's little teeny tiny micro preferences that are just slightly better than this with some other knives, and so I'd have to knock that one out. Oh my gosh. This is getting tough. What's the next one I'm going to knock out here? Probably the Benchmade Mini Adamas. This is probably the most interesting knife that Benchmade has released in 2021. And I love it. It's awesome. This would definitely be kind of the nicer EDC knife. Definitely not a budget knife at about $212. You can definitely get this right now. Definitely would most like that's the role, or that's the category that it would fit into the best. It just comes down to, again, preference. There's just knives that are, I kind of like something that's a little bit bigger, and something that's a little bit less confined on the handle scales. But what they, were trying to achieve here was achieved beautifully. This is a smaller EDC tank that's got some more premium materials like crew wear. It's also got excellent fit and finish and excellent action, which is certainly something that I've noticed with Benchmade over the last year. So even though I'm knocking it out, please understand, I love this. You guys will get a review on this thing soon, and it is definitely shining. What do we got here that I'm going to knock out? So I'm going to have to knock this out. So this knife is a safe queen. 100%. This is the Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon. I waited for 10 months for this thing, alongside a lot of people, right? This knife is essentially flawless, and I love it. It's a safe queen. That's the only role that it can fit, right? Because I'm not going to use this particular one. I did have an old user version of this, and I loved it. Part of the reason why I wanted to pick this up, right? Well, timeline was a little different there, but this is great. It's not a knife that I'm ever going to use. It's a knife that I'm just going to cherish. And I like that. I've got multiple, right? But I can only keep one. It's not going to be this one. It's not my favorite safe queen in the collection. But I do love it. This is a knife that I definitely recommend. It's just not the one. If I had to choose, it's just not the one that I'm going to keep. I'm trying to find a nice place for that where it doesn't get bumped. Okay. Moving on here. The next one I'm going to have to knock out, probably the ProTech Strider SNG. This one is titanium. Long discontinued. Number 2 of 40. People always ask me, where can I buy a titanium one of those? I haven't done it for a long time. This was a gift from my good buddy Jeff. Love this. EDC it. Expensive knife. I have no idea what this is worth now, but I use it and I love it, right? This is definitely going to fit into the, the higher end production EDC knife. I think these were $490 when they came out. Love it. It's just not going to be the final one. It's not going to be the one that I, keep in that category. The automatic thing, kind of, I like the manual stuff, personally, for carry just a little bit more in most circumstances. In some circumstances, the automatic feature makes a little bit more sense, right? If I'm working in an area where one hand is going to be busy, right, and it's going to be dirty, then pushing a button, having the blade deploy, I mean, that does work really, really well. But that's not my day-to-day. For the same reason, as much as I love the ProTech Rockeye, if this is not available yet, this is the new one in S35VN that ProTech sent me a while, early. They let me take a look at it early. This is my favorite automatic, side-opening automatic knife of all time, and they brought it back. I love this thing. It will be available soon. Absolutely. So check the links down below. I love this thing, but again, in most general EDC scenarios, I just don't need the automatic feature. Some people are going to need it a little bit more, and if you do, I cannot recommend this thing enough. This is based on the Rockeye, the original Rockeye from Les George. Then they did the Midtech Talos. The Midtech VECP. They did the VECP Flipper, and then this is the production collaboration with ProTech. Amazing. Not the high-end production knife that I'm going to keep for EDC. Moving on here, let's go ahead and knock out the Rat 2. I have beat on this thing. It's been cleaned and sharpened and cleaned and sharpened and just used as a bunch of different, the pry bar and a hammer. I love it. It has definitely served the beater role, and that's the category that I would have to put it in. But it is not the beater that I would want to keep. It's definitely not something that I feel like I could throw anything at and that it would take it. I mean, if I'm going to choose a beater, it's got to be something that will hold up to just about anything. It has to be. So it can't be this one. Moving on here, let's go ahead and knock out the Ritterhogue, and then I'll kind of condense everything. The Ritterhogue, I love it. I think this is one of the best value. I mean, as far as like dollar for dollar, exactly what you're getting. I've been saying this since, I think, 2018, whenever it came out. This is a KnifeWorks, I believe. KnifeWorks exclusive, the Hogue Ritter RSK MK1 G2, which is basically a better Benchmade Griptilian. It has nearly the same dimensions, difference in the blade. You're getting a beautiful texturing on the G10, contouring. You're getting an excellent pocket clip. You're getting what feels like a more premium axis, like they call it the Able Lock, right? M390, better cutting geometry. This thing is a winner at about 160 bucks. It's just not the winner that I'm looking for. I've got other knives in my collection that I would choose over this one. It is excellent. All right. A lot of the general theme here, you guys probably pick up on, is I don't keep knives in my collection unless I can see them fitting into a specific role, and I actually think they're excellent. So everything that's left on the table, rest assured, I think it's excellent, right? But some of them I think are more excellent than others, or that serve different purposes, or, you know, in some cases, hypothetical purposes, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be used for exactly what I think it's going to be the best at for me to keep it. Got a lot of knives to pick from. Some get used more than others, right? Oh boy. Let's see here. The next one that I'm going to knock out. This is a huge bummer here, guys. Yeah, I think the one that I'm gonna knock out is probably the Strider 3/4 AR. It's an expensive knife. DLT Trading exclusive. This one's an S90V. These are 600 bucks. You can definitely still get them. I've been using this thing and carrying it like crazy. I love this big meaty tank. Crazy. It is a little bit cumbersome. Not really that bad. Check this out. This is how well the action has broken in on this thing. I can now reverse flick this guy, and it has stayed, the lockup has stayed great. The centering has stayed absolutely perfect. You can take a look here, the lockup. God, this is amazing. I love this thing. It's just not the one that I want to keep for it to be my dedicated higher end EDC knife. I do love it. I do carry it a lot. It's just not the one that's going to make the cut. Still trying to find good places to keep all these. Let's go ahead and knock out the Benchmade Mini Crooked River. Again, love this thing. This was a gift from Shaker MT. Custom shop, blue G10, and the black aluminum bolster, CPM 20 CV blade. I love it. I've just found that, if you guys can't tell, my preference for manipulation and deployment, some people really like the axis lock for fidget vector, and I like it too. I don't like it as much as some of the other locking mechanisms that I've got on the table, and that's really just preference. I'm not actually saying that this isn't as good as everything else. It's just what my hands want to do or what they're comfortable with doing. This one's great. It's just not quite where I want it to be. I love this thing. I even like the color on it. You can see we're getting more and more monochromatic as we knock things down, but I'd have to let that one go, you know. Moving on here. What are we going to knock out? This is this is a huge problem. See, the deal is, if you're still here, right? I mean, if you're still here right now, it means you really care, you're dedicated to this video. And the vast majority of people have dropped off. They've stopped watching. Any video, you can look up this information on YouTube, right? Any video that's longer than about 8 minutes loses the audience. I don't do long videos because I think everybody's watching. I do them because I like to do them, and I know some of my dedicated viewers really do sit all the way through this stuff. So I'm dedicated to that, and this is what I enjoy, right? So if you're here, you've realized the predicament that I'm in, because everything that's left is stuff that I really, really love for certain roles. So this is going to come as a surprise for a lot of you, I think. And I'm going to explain myself. I think the Civivi Ortis is the best all-around EDC budget knife. I really do. This is in the moment. Part of the reason why I do these is because when I start to narrow things down, I don't think about this beforehand. I don't like write down my answers, right? and then you slowly creep towards it. No, I do this because this is soul searching for me. I want to know, like, in the moment, you got to pick what's your gut say, right? The Civivi Ortis, I think, is the best all the way around, the best all around EDC budget knife for the vast majority of people looking for, a good light carry, just general budget knife. These are $40, 9CR, 18 MOV, great flipper, great ergonomic lines, nice size, nice profile, nice choke up position, nice cutting geometry. I like all of it. You know what's funny? When it comes down to it, it's not the one that I'm going to reach for. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys right now. Let's go ahead and name one. The absolute winner when it comes to my EDC budget knife, the one that I'm going to just always want to have, it's the Praxis. It's bigger and it is more cumbersome than the Ortis. And actually, I think for a lot of people, this is going to be less convenient or less preferable. There's something about that Praxis that just makes it invincible. So while I still think that the Ortis is probably the best all-around EDC budget knife in existence, it really nails everything. When it comes down to my gut instinct, my collection, and what I just could not bear to let go of, the Praxis is still invincible. For the EDC budget knife category, that one is officially selected. So we'll put that guy up here for now. So what we have left is Beater, the higher end production EDC knife, the nicer one. We have the special occasion knife, and we have a Save Queen. I'm going to go ahead and knock out the Microtech SOCOM Elite. I love this. This was a gift for my wife. This could fit into the beater roll because you really could use this for just about anything, right? More likely though, it's going to fit into like the higher end, the nicer EDC production carry. And it's great, but it's a little bit too big for me, right? It's just a little bit bigger than the Praxis, but it's just a little bit too much. It's a little bit too tactical, too aggressive. It's got a whole bunch of stuff that I appreciate as an enthusiast. But when it comes down to just, appreciating it and wanting to actually carry it, the parameters that it's going to fit into, it just doesn't quite do that as good as some of the other ones here. Oh my gosh. So here's the other thing. This will come as a shock for you guys. My most carried knife of all time is the Spyderco Para 3 Maximate. It's also a gift from my wife. It would not be the one that I decided to keep. It would fit just like the Microtech SOCOM Elite. This is kind of in that over $100, nice, well-made, premium materials production knife that I'm going to actually carry. I love it, and it's the one that I always reach for, right? This is a tool to me now. There's, other than the sentimental value, which again, we're not including in this video because that'd be super boring and it'd just be the same stuff over and over again. Outside of that, this is a tool. I'm no longer like, oh, the lines on the Para 3 and oh, look at the finish working. No, this is just a tool. This is what I use to cut stuff, right? It's convenient. It's purpose built. And now that it has the right pocket clip on it, it serves that role well, which is why I reach for it. But if I had to get rid of everything and I only keep one, again, it's not going to be the one. Oh my gosh. Okay. I got a lot of hinderers here, and I gotta knock one out. The truth is that as long as I hunted for an XM24 in titanium, finally getting it, I do love this thing. And this is a Save Queen. This guy does not get used, not because I'm afraid of using an $800 knife. No, honestly, at this point, I don't care. I got plenty of expensive knives that I definitely use. But it's just not the one that I'm going to keep. It's not going to be my ultimate Save Queen. I love it. And I think it's great that it finally did get built. Because, my God, finding a tie scale for the XM24. Years! Been trying to find one for like 5 years. I had to have Barry knives. Curtis Berry actually made this, custom made this scale for my XM24. And I love it. It's not the one that I'm going to keep. I'm also going to go ahead and knock out the Spyderco Shaman. I love this, and I actually called it Excalibur. I mean, the combination of the Flytanium scales and the blade, the profile, just the look of the Shaman, this is excellent. I've added that clip on there. I've got the backspacer. It's everything that I could want. Oddly enough, though, despite it being, as far as my own personal checklist, right, for Excalibur, I made it. you know, I built this thing to be exactly that, and it has served that role well. It doesn't make it into my pocket nearly as much anymore. And based on the other knives that I've got in my collection, despite being exactly what I wanted it to be, it's not the gut instinct reach for knife. This would be the nicer production. A lot of these knives would, you know, I'm sure you can see what my collection generally consists of, right? I like knives in this territory. I got a lot of them. This just isn't going to be the one. So this is hard. And well, actually, there's one, I'm sure you guys can kind of see here. There's one that's going to automatically fit a certain role, and that's the special occasion knife. It has to be this one. Special occasion knife is the Spyderco Delica in titanium and the laminate Damascus. I love this. My wife gave this to me for our most recent anniversary. I put the MXG deep carry clip on it, and it is absolutely, it's like my dedicated, this is kind of what I figured, right? This is what I figured I'd end up with, but this was probably the easiest choice to make. This is the knife that I carry for special occasions. I love this. And it's not just because my wife gave it to me. It's because I've always enjoyed the idea of carrying a Delica because of its amazing EDC profile setup, right? Kind of like that it's a lock back knife. I like that. It doesn't, you know, it's not something that I'm going to do. Like, it's generally something I'm open like this. It's also a beautiful blade, right? That's what makes it easier for me to get this out in front of people who may not be knife people at an event where a knife is not the most appropriate thing to be waving around. This is a conversation piece. It looks nice. It looks interesting, right? It's not super scary. It's not super aggressive or anything like that. It also is going to cut well, and it carries nice and deep now that I've got that pocket clip on there. This is my dedicated special occasion knife. That's the one that's going to stay there. Huge problem now, because we've got the first two categories knocked out. The nicer high-end production knife that I'm actually going to carry. Got a couple of different things here. We've got a couple of different candidates for Safe Queen, and we've got a couple of different obvious candidates for beater. Let's do beater. The more robust, arguably the greatest beater of all time. It is a fixed blade, though. Do I want to carry a fixed blade, or do I want to carry what I consider to be the very best budget beater folding knife of all time? Cold Steel SR1. This is definitely a more practical item, but it doesn't fold, right? So this thing's huge and blocky. Fold it up, and it's got a pocket clip. Arguably, I mean, anything that I could throw at this, right? I mean, like, yeah, a fixed blade's definitely going to be stronger than a lock. I mean, even when we're talking about a folding knife, but this is a massively robust Cold Steel Triad lock. This thing's crazy. I gotta be honest. I know people are like, you gotta have a fixed blade in your collection. You just have to. This is the greatest budget fixed blade of all time. I cannot recommend this thing enough. The more robust. Excellent for $15. This is $60. But I want the convenience of a folding knife. I'm not going to scale a building with this, although I'm sure I probably could. I'm not going to use it as a diving board, right? I'm not going to infiltrate any structures, right? Wearing my ninja suit. I'm not going to do that. This will handle everything that I will throw at this. It absolutely will. It is a ridiculous beast freak of a knife. It is basically a folding pry bar, and that's what I want it to be. It folds, and I can put it in my pocket. I don't want to wear this thing off my pants, right? So this is the ultimate beater. It's gonna, honestly, it's gonna take something crazy to crown ultimate beater over that guy. And I'm sure there are other fixed blades, and I gotta go off my collection, guys. I know there are other knives out there that I might prefer. These are the ones in my collection. Oh boy, between these two, which one's gonna be my final? These are both hinderers. This is the true hinderer. This is the ZT0392 factory custom that is based on the Eclipse, and it is basically an Eclipse that is full titanium, right? It even has factory hinderer hardware. The irony is that these guys are actually more expensive than true hinderers now. If you don't believe me, type in ZT0392 on eBay, and then pick your jaw up off the floor. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating to look at. Hunted one of these forever. I can't say no to the true hinderer, right? It's like, this is the 5 forever, right? I'm talking about nicer production knives that I'm actually going to carry and use. I love this, and I will always love it. This is definitely a user, and so is this one. Both of these knives get carried and used. but I got to go with the true hinderer. So that's going to be the one that the nicer production knife that I'm going to carry. That is a very expensive variant of that standard version of the XM18 3.5 inch, coming in at $425. That's got a titanium scale on it, making it a $625 knife. I've been using it, been loving it, gonna keep loving it. We have my two favorite Save Queens here. We have the extremely rare XM24 Tri-Way Spanto in the elusive and possibly discontinued Black Stonewash DLC. Different than DLC, different than Blackwash. This has got a reflective finish. We've got a carbon fiber scale on this. I am waiting for Hinderer to release a Black Stonewash titanium scale, which may never come. It may never come. This knife is so weird and so hard. This exact knife is so hard to find. And I knew that that was going to be the case when I bought it. This one lone wolf popped up on USA Made Blade when I thought they were all going to be gone. And I immediately messaged Scott and said, I want that right now. I have to have that. I love this knife. I love how it looks. I love that it's an XM, right? This is a knife that I don't use. And I know that's going to make some people mad, but I love this for so many reasons. I also love my Demco 8020. I know you guys think that I probably already have the answer, but I don't. I'm actually going over this in my head. Truly, what this comes down to, because I love these, but I think that I've called this the ultimate folding knife. I've called this the King Blade, right? Because I think that. But when it comes down to like, my soul, which knife is more connected to my soul, right? It's so difficult. The 8020 in full titanium is super hard to get right now too. Hopefully more available soon, but I don't, the reason I don't think I can part with this one, I mean, it does have the textured titanium, right? This guy's, it's not really about that, right? Even if that one is full titanium, it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to say, but I have a Hinderer right here. And I've got, it's a full titanium 3.5 inch, right? There's one already there. For this, this is almost just coming down to just having variety. I think I'd finally have to say goodbye to the Dark Horse. I honestly think I would. Might be a different story if I had selected something else as the EDC production knife that I was actually going to carry, right? Should do these in the order that I named them. But if I'd picked something else for this category, then maybe I would have kept the Dark Horse, because I just can't not have a Hinderer, right? These are the 5. These are the final 5. Cold Steel SR1 Light. Ultimate beater, and definitely the one that's going to fill that role the best in my collection. Should get these out as I name them. Civivi Praxis. That would definitely be the EDC budget knife that I'd always want to have around, right? I'm going to use it, not going to baby it, but it's not a beater. Special occasion knife, yeah. Definitely the, absolutely 100%. The Delica in Damascus and titanium. Higher end EDC knife, absolutely. Hinderer XM18, 3.5 inch, in this case, Harpoon Spanto, full titanium, and the Save Queen. King Blade, Demco 8020, which has won everything, and it's always the, I know it's always the one, but hey, listen, I gotta be honest, it's just what it's gonna, you know, it is what it is. It's that good. If you've been saving up, right, or you're thinking, holy crap, it's expensive, should I go for it? Yeah, more are coming, guys. I will link all of these knives down in the description. I cannot promise that they're all available, especially like the Demco 8020, but I'll link them all down there so that you've at least got a link to go and check when you want to. I hope this was entertaining. This is fun for me to do. I know not everybody watches everything to the end. That's not why I do these. I do them because I like thinking about this stuff. I like breaking this kind of stuff down. Like I said, this is an open tag. Other channels who want to do this, if you do it, you got to let me know. You got to email me. You got to DM me on Instagram so that I know that you did it. And then once you've finished it, I will place your video in a playlist. And to my viewers, you know, if you're watching this sometime in the future, be sure to check out my playlists and click on the Final 5 playlist if you want to check out some of these other channels. that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. If you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody.